Young Dad podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe, just maybe, you finally got a moment to sit back, relax, and enjoy your favorite podcast, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Jay, and today I'm joined by Michael, the head of operations at Cleverelly, a safety organization on a mission to save lives by preventing hot car deaths. More common than you think. His organization's mission is simple devices turn a life-saving action. Over 8 years of experience, Michael has worked with nonprofits, hospitals, and parent communities across the U.S. to raise awareness and drive prevention. So, with that, we're going to be talking about some child safety here, some very preventable things, and ways to keep your children safe, especially during the hot summer months. So, with that, Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thank you all for being here. Jay, thank you for having me on the show and giving me the opportunity to chat about something that I believe is very important, something I'm very passionate about. And yeah, I'm really excited for this episode.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, we're talking about something, kind of high stakes here, right? Uh, and I think there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt surrounding these conversations because I think there definitely can be some shame given to those that can forget their children in the car from time to time. But it happens. It's crazy how it happens, and we're gonna jump into that a little bit more. But first off, how did this all start? How did Cleverelly come to life, and what brought you to being so passionate about this 8 years ago?
Yeah, of course. So I didn't actually start it 8 years ago. I only joined the organization a couple years ago, but the organization's been around for 7 or 8 years. I think the story of how it started is a huge testament to what you just said. So about 7 or 8 years ago, a group of three dads, 7 years ago they launched, but 8 years ago is when they found out about this and whatnot. They launched, and his wife had told him that this happens. His wife told him that babies die in hot cars. And his first response was quite a natural response, which was to laugh it off. He was like, "Are you kidding me? Who forgets their baby in the back of a car? That's ridiculous." And he thought it was funny. And his wife said to him, "No, actually, this isn't funny at all. And you're the type of person who's most at risk of this." So he still didn't think much of it. But fast forward a few months, and he was driving his son to childcare and then started driving, heading towards the office. And he was driving towards the office and he looked in his rearview mirror and he saw his son in the back seat. And it wasn't dangerous at all in that time. He simply did a U-turn, headed back to childcare, dropped his son off, and nothing actually happened. However, it hit him that this is the memory lapse that his wife was talking about. And it really shook him because what if he didn't look in the rearview mirror? What if he got into the office, went upstairs, and came back out at lunchtime or the end of the day? Or what if instead of going to the office, he needed to run to the supermarket and grab some groceries or something like that was super important? You know, he was on autopilot. Something came up at work. Can't remember exactly what it is, but something came up at work. He needed to deal with it and he went to deal with it. It was as simple as that. And the science behind this is that our brains can hold 7 or 8 bits of information at a time. And as new bits of information pops into the brain, simply put, an old bit will fall out. So unless we get a reminder in some form, whether that be sound, touch, smell, feel, thought, we simply put will forget our children in the back of a car. So yeah, he realized this, he learned this, he started looking into this, and there was research about it, even though it wasn't in the media, nowhere near as much as it is today. And he gathered up with his friends and invented Cleverelly. So he took 6 months off his job, off his business, and created this. And it was more of a side passion project. It was a non-for-profit in the beginning, and it was just about doing good. So him and his friends did this on the side while all of them independently ran their own businesses. Fast forward till COVID, and things started heating up a little bit. There was problems, and they were very time poor. As I said, they all ran their own businesses, and they weren't able to deal with the challenges of Cleverly, and operations came to a halt. Then more recently, I joined the organization, have fixed those problems, and have really been scaling up our mission and purpose, which really is to save lives. So a little bit on the progress and what we made and how we made it. So initially when they were starting out, they were really techie guys and they wanted to build the most advanced, technologically advanced system out there. They wanted to build this really advanced detection system. But when they did GoFundMes and research groups and things like that, they realized no one wanted this. It wasn't that they wouldn't spend a $300, $400, $500 on a device to save their child's life. It's that It's like an admittance of guilt. I need a three, four, $500 device to remind me that my child's in the back of my car. It's already against human nature. Like I was saying, remember how I said he laughed it off when he first heard about it? That was a very natural response by parents when we went to expos. A lot of people laughed it off, told us we were idiots, told us this is ridiculous. But that was back then when there wasn't any media or awareness about it. Now, when we go to expos, it's not that much different in terms of they know this happens, they know this happens a lot, but they still can't take responsibility for it. So they don't say, they come up to us and they go, "Oh, this is so sad. This would never happen to me. But my partner, but my mom, but my dad, but my whoever's taking care of the child." They now understand that this happens, but it is so far against human nature to ever take responsibility for it that they simply put never will. So we realized that one, this device had to be extremely affordable for that reason, and it also had to be simple. Parents weren't willing to go to the mechanic to install a device or get it maintained every 3 to 6 months. They weren't willing to touch anything around the engine or inside the car or, do anything that was too major. Especially when there is already those barrier points of this will never happen to me and this can't happen to me and I don't want to admit this is going to happen to me. So we realized it needed to be as simple and as affordable as we possibly can. And over the last 8 years, we've been refining that, making it more simple, more simple, more simple, and more compatible to all cars. Over the years, there has been a few technological barriers. Cars started retaining power to the socket outlets. So essentially how the device originally worked, let me start with that, was you plugged it into the socket outlet, the cigarette lighter, and then every time you turned off the engine, it emitted a randomized voice to help you build the habit of checking the back seat. But then as technology advanced, cars retained power to that socket outlet so you could charge your phone even when the car was off. This obviously was a problem for us, but we came up with a quick solution, which was we now include door sensors in every single unit, which is very easy to install. It's in the instruction manual. There's also a QR code attached to a video in the instruction manual. And you just stick on this door sensor onto the driver door. And then every single time you open that driver door, it triggers the unit to emit a randomized message, which then makes it compatible again in pretty much all cars. The only one caveat to that is more recently that some cars now don't even have a socket outlet full stop. But we have an adapter on our website, or you can buy it from Amazon or your local department store that converts USB A or C to a socket outlet, and then again making it compatible in all cars. So this is compatible in all cars. You just need that adapter. I would say the prices range from, $7 to $12 across anywhere you find. You shouldn't really be paying more than $12 no matter where you look. And we sell it on our website on the lower end of that scale. And yes, you can buy that adapter, and on top of that, the device then is compatible in all cars, and it's there in a different way to help you build the habit of checking the back seat. So our approach is different in that we're focusing on building the habit of checking the back seat. The reason why is because a lot of these incidents occur when there's a change in routine, when you're on vacation, when your car's at the mechanic, when mum or dad's driving the kids, when you're super tired, when you're super busy. So the idea is, how can we help humans become as equipped as possible to remember to check the back seat? And that's what led us to Cleverelly and led us to habit formation, because we don't want to become reliant on that technology. Because if we do become reliant on that technology and we do have a really advanced system, what happens when it fails? What happens when it needs to be repaired? What happens when it needs to be maintained? What happens when the batteries die? We're even less likely to remember our child in the backseat. And because this is such a serious issue, we don't want to become reliant on technology for this ever. We want to use technology as a tool to help us become as equipped as we possibly can to remember to check the back seat. So that's what led us to the device and led us to creating it, and that's where we are with it now. We recently launched just a few days ago a new version of the device with Type-C fast charging. With it has like all the improvements basically any parent has asked for over the last years and years and years. We think we've incorporated everything into this device now. The door sensor, the adhesive is now stronger than it was before. We had some complaints and some parents saying that in some really hot days, they would bump it and it would fall off. But now we've fixed that issue. We haven't had a complaint on that yet. The audio level over the last 8 years, we've gone up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, down a little bit. And now, again, we've reached the level where we haven't had any complaints. That's been in testing stage for months and months and months. And yeah, everyone has loved it. And there's a few other small issues that we've fixed up as well. And now we're up to the stage where we really think this can help save lives. And we like to compare having one device in a car to one child's life saved. We don't believe that Cleverly is the only solution to this. We just believe it's one of the many great ones out there. And we believe that habit formation is the answer to this. So, in line with that, we believe talking about this is huge because, like I was saying, one of the ways you remember your child's in the back seat with the 7 to 8 bits of information is memory and thought. So if you hear about a conversation you had yesterday, or you hear about how relatable this is to you, you're more likely to remember. On that, I like to tell people about the fact that in America, you guys don't record how many near misses or close calls there are. There might be some smaller organizations that do this, but on a national level, it's not recorded. Whereas in Australia, it is. And in Australia, there are over 5,000 close calls related to this every single year in Australia. Now, America is 13 times more populated, which means in the States, we estimate from other statistics that this happens more often, which means in the States, we believe this happens 65,000 times a year, if not more. I think that really shows how relatable this is to all parents. Another thing to show relatability is the fact that cars from 2025 onwards have legislated having this in their cars, which means all new cars have a reminder device of some form. The problem that we're finding a lot of parents are coming to us with is, hey, it's a monotone voice in the car, and after 2 weeks, it goes into my background memory. Or it's a text on the dashboard and I don't notice it, or a notification on my phone and I don't notice it, which is why Cleverly is different in that it's a randomized voice every single time you exit. You hear a different voice, so it doesn't go into your background memory, and it's there to constantly reinforce the habit and help you build that habit of checking the back seat every single time you exit the vehicle. And we like to talk about, yeah, how relatable it is to every parent because, we all have stories of forgetting our keys inside the house or forgetting our wallet or whatever it is that we forget during the day when we're on autopilot and we don't realize what we're doing. But often after those situations, we can become conscious of it. And I strongly encourage parents when they become conscious of this and when they realize, hey, I just forgot my keys in my wallet, to think about that, to talk about that, to really delve into that. The next time you bump into your friends, think about that in a different situation. Think about that in a less fortunate situation. And I think that really helps parents realize how easy this is to happen and how much this happens. As we're in a world where AI and tech, and I hate to say this, but as AI and tech become more involved in our lives, the likelihood of this happening increases with that. And I really believe that this is something that can happen to everyone, and everyone is at risk of happening too, which is why talking about this, having a device, building a habit, these are the things we need to do to lower the statistics around this. We like to compare it to seatbelts. In the 70s, there was a lot of news articles around seatbelts and how seatbelts would save lives. And people in the beginning laughed it off. They thought it was ridiculous. They said, I'm not wearing a seatbelt. And we like to compare the news articles from the 70s to news articles now with this in the exact same way. Like, we want parents to build the habit of checking the back seat in the same way they have the habit of putting on a seatbelt every single time they get into the car because they know it is there for their safety. They know it is a necessity for their safety, and that although they may not get into a crash, it can save their life, and it is such an easy thing to do. And we want checking the back seat to be that exact same routine and habit.
Wow. So that's a really cool idea, really cool ideas here behind Cleverelly, and I do just wanna share some of the US-based statistics here, since I got them pulled up. So, key statistics for the US for forgotten baby syndrome. It averages about 38 deaths per year here in the United States. Since 1998, about over 1,050 child deaths have been due to the vehicular heat stroke. Peak months are obviously May to September, the hottest months of the year in the United States. 50% of these deaths were because the child was forgotten by a caregiver. Under 25%, child got into the car on their own, and then under 20% child was knowingly left in the car. How it happens, much like you said, is often due to a lapse in prospective memory, where the brain forgets to perform a planned action like drop the child off at daycare. This can happen to anyone, regardless of intelligence, income, parenting experience, especially under stress, sleep deprivation, and change in routine. Contributing factors: stress or distractions, sleep deprivation, common in new parents, change in daily routine, so maybe a new job, you just moved, things like that, running late, child had a meltdown, whatever in the morning, assumption that someone else has the child, and then also rear facing seats, out of sight, out of mind. So that's some that we're thinking of here. But then also to go a little bit more, when you talk about near misses, your numbers were undersold a little bit here for the US. So a Safe Kids worldwide survey found 11% of parents, 1.5 million US parents admitted to forgetting their child in a vehicle at least once. Among parents of kids under age 3, that number jumped to nearly 25%. The same survey showed about 14% of parents admitted to intentionally leaving their child alone in a parked vehicle. And then a study in Riyadh saw 24.9% of participants admit to leaving their child alone in a locked car on a sunny day.
I thought
These
I'd
figures indicate that tens of millions of Americans have experienced a close call.
I thought I'd just jump in there with that statistic that I was speaking about earlier of the 5,000 in Australia and comparing that to 65,000 in America. Those aren't just close calls of my uncle's story where he's driving his son to work instead of to childcare. That's not even included in those statistics. I'm talking about 5,000 cases where the fire department or ambulance had to come and rescue that kid out of the car, and potentially that kid had a mental illness or that kid had whatever physical trauma or problem later on in life that wasn't even linked to this, that we didn't even record around this, or that we don't know is linked to this, but was because of this. And those are 65,000 cases that are severe. Those are 65,000 cases that are not optimal. They're not cases where, like my uncle's, he just simply did a U-turn and all was good.
Yeah. So, yeah, 11% of parents in the United States admit to forgetting their child at least once. One in four kids under 3 years old. Thousands of near forgetting and rescues occur annually, but exact numbers are unclear. The near misses are far more common than the 38 deaths per year from hot car heat stroke. The near misses show it's not about negligence, it's about human memory flaws. So much like you're saying, talking about here with Cleverelly, and understanding that so many parents experience this underscores the importance of preventative tools and habits. Much like you're saying here, backseat reminders, check alerts, and daycare callbacks as well. So there's a lot that goes into this here, and there are a lot of near misses. Upwards of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, per day. The UK A UK study, roadside services are called to rescue a child from a vehicle about 7 times per day on average, uh, in the UK. So,
I'm sure
that's a
this
lot.
happens all over
That's a
the
lot.
world. And
Oh, it
yeah,
happens
that's
everywhere. Everywhere
that's
that
what's
everywhere
really
you have
scary.
cars.
And another thing that's often not spoken about is I know we're in summer now and people love to speak about hot cars, but it's just as bad in winter, in cold winters of babies freezing to death. In fact, last year in the States, we saw a death every single month of the year. This happened every single month of the year, all year round. Yes, it happens more often during summer than any other months, like you said in those statistics, the May to September, and we see that as well. However, this does happen all year round, and we do encourage parents to use a device like Cleverly all year round and to be focused on this issue all year round because it can happen at any time of the year. It can happen on an average, warmish day during winter or a freezing cold day during winter as well. I think that's an important aspect to speak about. You also touched on the fact that Safe Kids published those articles. Safe Kids are probably the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest organizations within this space. They have, over 400 plus coalitions across the country of America. Recently at an expo we went to in Lifesavers because we're out of Australia, so I don't get as much face-to-face contact as you probably do with parents, which is why I find it very useful to get on podcasts such as these and speak to people about this. But recently we were in the States in America at Lifesavers, an expo within this industry, and we were speaking with Safe Kids who very much loved what we were doing and loved our product. And one of the big things they said was there's a lot of other reminder devices out there. And apart from the reasons that I had spoke about earlier, they had said that the reminder devices within the baby seat run into all sorts of regulatory issues because of crash testing and things like this and how dangerous that can become. And they ordered a bulk amount of units of Cleverellies to distribute to their coalitions to hand out to families and whatnot. And we're working with them now, and they've been amazing support for us, and they are an amazing organization. But I think I was having a chat with them and other organizations too about this. The fact that car manufacturers have legislated this, I think really, above all statistics, shows how serious this is because to legislate a law in America is no easy task. And I think that shows testament to how serious this issue is, the fact that, the government was willing to legislate it in all cars.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. You mentioned the cold deaths a minute ago. So, fun fact, they're actually not formally tracked here in the United States.
The what, sorry? The
The
cold
the cold deaths for when
cold
the cold
deaths,
car deaths
yes.
happen, they're not formally tracked here in the United States. It's however reported that only a small handful of confirmed cases have happened over the past 2 decades. For example, a 2005 case happened, to where a baby was left in the car overnight, and then a few scattered cases happen in, like, the northern states to where it gets colder versus and then also in Canada as well. But annual US cold car deaths rarely exceed 1 to 2 cases per year, if any. Some years are none. But still, same idea here, right? To where it's because of that forgetting, it's because of the not checking, it's because of thinking, "Oh, the car's here," sleep deprivation, work stress, life stress, thinking the baby's here when the baby's there, thinking someone else has a baby, and things like that can get very easily forgotten. Um, and I think Cleverelly is a great tool in that, to where it's something very simple. You plug it in, you put it on your car, and then I really like the idea because my background's in mental health and I work in my background's in developmental psychology, but just understanding the psychology behind that, where it's a
I think
different voice every time is really cool, and I want people to understand that because your brain will start to tune different things out, right? It will start to tune the same voice out in time. It'll just get used to it, just like your alarm. It gets used to it. You should be changing your alarm every few months, kind of thing, to keep it fresh, so you don't miss it because your brain will tune it out. It'll get used to it, and then you'll start waking up late. But the different voices is a really cool feature there.
think as well, we like to compare how relatable this is to parents and find creative ways to make this relatable to parents, and that helps as well because over the last 8 years, awareness has grown a lot around this. There has been a lot of information about this, and people know about this, but the numbers haven't dropped off. And again, we like to compare that to seatbelts. When seatbelts were first out in the media and people realized how dangerous not wearing a seatbelt was, they knew about it, but it still didn't fix the issue. It wasn't until people were enforced and actually wearing seatbelts that real difference and real change was made, which is why it's not just about awareness. We think it's about taking action and changing behaviors. And part of that is trying to find how this is relatable to you. I heard yesterday, literally just yesterday, this story about a mum who was driving down the highway, stopped on the side of the road, and went with their kid to the bathroom. I'm not sure how old the kid was exactly, but she got back in her car, she started driving down 70 miles down the road, and then she realized her child wasn't with her in the back seat. Her child was still in the bathroom. A local police department or sheriff, or I'm not sure what you call it, obviously someone saw the child, called it into the local police department or sheriff, which tracked down the mum, called the mum drove back and picked up the child. But, stories like that probably don't even make the news. It might have made the news, I'm not sure, but I think that's obviously more of an extreme example, but stories like that where parents can forget come in
I wouldn't even say
all
that's
sorts of different
extreme.
forms.
I wouldn't even say that's an extreme example. I would say it's more common though. But in reality, those things probably happen every single day. And like you said, they just don't make the news, but they're more common than you think. I don't think we should discount them at all. If it's a serious matter regardless. Saying like, let's we and I think that goes to the conversation here, right? Where we don't want to, make it seem like, oh, well, it's only 38 out of millions of kids a year that die because of this. But that's still 38 kids on
Babies,
average. That's an
often
average.
babies.
38 babies, 38 kids under 3, right? That this is happening to on an annual basis. And you want to stay in this "it can't happen to me" mindset. Well, guess what? I'm sure 35 out of 38 of those other parents had that "it can't happen to me" mindset. You know, Maybe let's go 80-20. 80% of that 38 had a "it can't happen to me" mindset. Because
It's
like, oh, all
possible
those
that it's
things I hear,
100.
those are extremes. Those are just social media examples. It'll never happen to me. And I think that's kind of where we gotta, have the conversation and making, this is a common occurrence that could happen anytime to anyone. That mom's just a regular mom going about her day. Heck, neighbors probably knew her. That's probably not covered in media and in news because they don't wanna bring any shame to the parent. Stuff like that happens, and they don't wanna blow it up. It's not a big enough story, right? They don't wanna shame one person kinda thing and make an example of it unless they can make an example out of it, there's a narrative attached to it or anything like that, so
I completely agree. And recently as well, there's some state task forces in certain states that are in the process of building. I know Texas have had one for a few years now, and we're making some videos for them for their libraries. Very similar content to what I'm saying here in this podcast, and very similar information. But I very much think this conversation is the start. It's definitely not the end. Listening to this podcast needs to be the start of this conversation, and I encourage you guys to reach out to other people, reach out to other parents, and just talk about this because, like I said, that helps a lot. I included my email beneath my name here on this podcast for the reason that if you have any feedback for us, things we can do better, ideas for us, ways we can get these devices out there, and other ways we can help save lives, I strongly encourage you to reach out to me personally. That's my personal email address. And yeah, over this year, next year, and into the future, I'm really looking forward to reducing those statistics and really making a big difference. We used to do more awareness type campaigns, but we believe now that the biggest way to take action and make a difference is simply to build the habit around checking the backseat. And we've really simplified our mission to just that, building the habit of checking the backseat. And we believe Cleverelly is one of the most effective ways and quickest ways to do that. Recently, when I was in Ubers in the States for expos, when I was getting in and out of the cars, I could literally hear the voices in my head. And I think that shows exactly what we were trying to achieve, by hearing a different voice every single time. When I touch the driver door, when I touch a door to get out of a car, I hear that voice in my head. And automatically you look, automatically you do the actions. You're not thinking about it. And that's what we want. We want it to happen in autopilot so that when things change, when things get busy, when you're not conscious to checking for your baby in the back of a car, you do it automatically.
yeah. Yep, and I think that goes back to a whole thing here if we relate it to sports, right? Like, you gotta get your reps in. You have to get the reps in. It's not that habit these habits that we're talking about aren't just gonna build overnight, right? You're not just gonna start tomorrow and be great at this, right? You need reminders, especially in today's world, and today's economy, as the kids say. There's there's so much going on, right? Like, our brain can only hold so many bits of information at a time. And our lives are moving so fast, the world's moving so fast around us that those things come in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out so quickly. And having a simple reminder can literally save your child's life. Even though you are probably listening to this, and I would assume most of the people listening to this are probably thinking, well, it can't happen to me. I, you know, I do this or I have this measure in place. That's great. We're not talking to you kind of thing. We're talking to those that are stuck in that, well, it can't happen to me. I'll be fine. That's not going to happen to me, or it doesn't get hot enough here, or it doesn't get cold enough here. Even if I did forget them, I'll remember them eventually, kind of thing. We're talking to that crowd right now that's going to keep finding the reasons to justify those excuses. Because, like we said, 38 of those 38, 80% of them more than likely were right there too, until it happened to them, and then they lost their child. Uh, And anyone would hate to see that. Anyone would hate to see that, to have that happen to themselves, to a friend, to a family member, to a neighbor. And it really goes a long way to put yourself in that shoes. It's good to prevent it. It's good to play defense. It's one of those things that, aligns with the old saying, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it kind of thing.
I totally agree. And yeah, there's no harm in having this habit. It doesn't affect your daily life. It doesn't take you any longer. We're talking about a 1 second head turn and an audio reminder going off whilst you're getting out of the car. It really doesn't affect your lifestyle at all. And it's so easy to implement. It takes a couple minutes to set it up and that's it. You never have to touch or do anything else again. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what kind of impact we can have over the next year and see what happens.
Most definitely. And besides, you probably only need it for a few years anyway, if that, until they start talking and babbling and you can't forget that they're there, because they won't let you because of how much they're babbling and talking and things like that. So it's a short-term thing for a short amount of time. Use it if you need it. If you don't need it, great. If you have other preventative measures in place, great. If you think you need it or you're questioning, I probably could use it, maybe, I don't know. Or if you're on the fence, you're probably one of the people that do need it. You're probably, believe it or not, you're probably in that can't happen to me mindset. And so we got to work out of that as well. Michael, is there anything else about the science behind Cleverelly or what you guys are doing, next phases, next steps, or anything about the mission, the purpose, and what's next for the brand and for the product that you want
I'm
to
trying
share?
to think. Our main goals, as I said, are simply put, our mission is to save lives, and the way we're doing that is getting units out there. We find if anyone knows anyone at any hospitals that purchase this and hand them out postpartum to new parents, to all new parents, no matter if they can afford it or not, we find that to be very influential. And if you know anyone there, we sell it at the cost price slash below cost price. We'll help you find donors for that as well. That's something we're very big on. Non-for-profits, they can buy them and hand them out to their communities, and they can help raise awareness for this. But also, you don't need to have money. Reach out to me if you wanna. I can send you infographics, brochures, statistics, other content to just simply hang up. If they want to print it off, I'm happy to. Obviously, very expensive to ship it here from Australia, but if they print it locally, I'm happy to reimburse them for those costs. If people can wrap their head around two main concepts, that one, this is relatable to everyone, and two, how this happens, how we forget, how we don't choose what we forget, and how that scientifically happens, because I think science really helps people conceptualize it, then I think that's going to have the greatest difference. Thank you, everyone, deeply for listening to this conversation, and for being here and sticking around and hearing me out. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens over the next little bit.
Do you yourself have children?
I actually don't, and can't necessarily relate to this, but I think I've seen firsthand over the years working with Cleverelly how this happens, how this affects parents, and yeah, nothing feels more rewarding than either getting an email from a parent that I've had your device in my car for, over 7 years now since the first re-edition. I love it. I've told all my friends and family about it, and we all feel more comfort at night going to sleep knowing that we have this in our cars. Or secondfold, hearing a parent who has been in an incident and they've reached out to us and thanked us for spreading awareness and for creating a device like this. And, they've really helped us as well over the years. I very much do enjoy working here, and I'm very lucky to be able to do such amazing work here.
I appreciate just being able to share more information about this. Is something that I hadn't really thought about talking about before. So with that, Michael, I thank you for your time today. If our listeners do want to check this out, they can head to cleverelly.com, and then you can simply shop their website. Well, they're simple, easy to use, lots of great information on the website. There's ways that you can gift them to others as a reminder. And let me show it real quick.
I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you for creating a podcast and space such as this, and for having me on here today to speak about this. I really appreciate you.
So with that, Michael, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you joining us today. Listeners, make sure you head to cleverelly.com here to check this out. Really cool, very simple, easy to use product. Cleverelly. And as always, thank you for listening to the show today. I've been your host, Jay. Michael's been with me. Make sure you do all the things that you can do to support this podcast, whether that's going to the Apple, leaving a 5-star, leaving a review, leaving 5 stars on Spotify, subscribing onto YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcast today. Make sure you do the things you can to show love for the podcast, and make sure, as always, also to head over to youngdadpod.com, where you can check out all things going on with the podcast, blogs, interactive activity guides as well. And if you want to check out this product and you want to check out other great products that the Young Dad Podcast is affiliated with, feel free to go down to the description of this episode, click the links, and then explore from there and purchase at your own leisure. So with that, until next time, make sure you guys take care, and we'll catch you right here in the next conversation.